Okay, so this is what we're trying to achieve. Okay, so here's how I did it in Python. So first we're going to import a few things. I use Selenium Stealth in order to mask that I'm using an automated bot to navigate the website. So I did from Selenium underscore stealth, import stealth, imported time. This will come in handy later when we start using sleep. Import random. This is also what we're going to use when we use sleep. Import Selenium, the Selenium WebDriver. This is important overall because the WebDriver is basically what's driving the whole program to work and do the automation task. We're going to import the WebDriver weight as well. Select. These two will come in handy later when we're trying to like wait for different elements to load, select elements, and then the no such element exception. We're using this when the element can't be found. If you're using like an IDE that gives like a little description like Visual Studio Code, you can see exactly what it's supposed to do. We're going to use expected conditions for things that we expect to be on the screen. We're going to use by and keys as well. Down here, I configured a few options. So for Selenium Stealth, in order for it to work, you need to use a bit of the Chrome options. Like when you go to, I think it's settings, options section, and then this is basically what it's going to mimic, like a user using it on the UI. We're going to just call it up in the code. So we're going to use opt right here. Opt adds the experimental options. We're going to need to enable automation. Select a profile directory. Here I use person4, but you can use whatever profile that you have on your system. You can use your own profile. You could create a different person. I selected person4, but it doesn't really matter. You can do person1, person2, person3, person4, but it creates the persons in order. Doesn't really matter what you select. Down here, after this, it's the experimental options, and then we're gonna disable automation as an extension to mask that we're using automation tools, and then we're going to disable pop-up blocking. For the driver I'm using the Chrome driver. This was already specified up here when I use the options, but you can also use Firefox. I believe that one's called the Gecko driver, and to get the driver, it's gonna be chrome driver.exe. To get there, you can simply navigate to Chrome web driver. Just Google search that, WebDriver for Chrome, Chromium WebDriver. Select the latest one. Make sure I select the latest one because I'm on the latest browser, but if you're on an older version, you select whatever version you have. Just wait for that to load. Okay, and then here we're just going to select Chrome driver for Windows 32. We just download that Chrome driver zip file, we unpack it, and then in there is a Chrome driver that we need. And that's basically that. Here, as we navigate back, we're going to configure the Selenium Stealth. What engine is going to use to render everything on the screen. Since I'm running an i5 with Intel Iris graphics integrated, I'm just going to use Intel Iris, the OpenGL engine. Of course, my vendor is going to be Intel since I'm using their engine. And the platform is Windows, the vendor is going to be Google. And then this down here just fixes a few rendering issues. I think it's like hairline fractures that show up on the screen, and it just fixes that. In order for the driver to work, we're going to have to gather the web page. So we're just going to use driver.get. You put in whatever web page you want. Here in this example that I'm going to use, I'm just going to go to a web page for a webcam. Seemed pretty low tilt, not a lot to do in terms of, selecting stuff and doing everything, but just for webcam. And we're going to start off by adding it to cart. So to select this add to cart button here, we can just open up the developer tools, and then we're going to see how we can select that. So the class for this button is C button. I believe this is the only C button on the screen, at least the one that we can see. That's here, and this is just to add to cart. So in order to go ahead and do this, we need to understand exactly when this button is going to be available. Sometimes the button is not available, such as an item that is sold out. So if I use something like a PlayStation 5, for example, see that the button is grayed out, and you're like, well, how am I going to use this for automation if I'm using this to buy like sold out items for, I guess, scalping or whatever? How will I know when it's there? So what we're going to do is configure. We're just going to go to the dev tools here, this window, go to sold out, and see what type of class it is. So see here it's different. Here it's a C dash button disabled. So what we're going to do is just navigate back over here, and we're going to define a boolean called found button. So when the button is not found, it's automatically set to false, but the button hasn't been found yet. We're going to set time to sleep for a little bit. This is in order to prevent us from being detected as a bot, and we're just going to sleep for about 5 seconds. And then while the button is not found, we're going to do add to cart button. I defined like 2 different names for it, but add to cart button equals add button, which equals to driver.find element. So here's we're going to find the element by the class name. So find driver.find element by class name, add to cart button. We look and see, oh, it's called add to cart button. That's great on both of them. So add to cart button keeps the name. It's just that one is disabled and one is not. So if C dash button is disabled in add to cart button, we're going to get the class attribute. So basically what this means is we're going to get the attribute for class if within the class there is something called C dash button dash disabled, which it is for the PlayStation. We are going to go ahead and run the next line. We're going to sleep for 30 seconds, and then we're going to refresh. So the driver is going to keep refreshing until the button is found, until this element is no longer here. So we're just going to start the while loop again every single time. If the button is not disabled, we just set found button into true, and then we're good to go. Then we can just click the button. Simple as that. So that part's a little bit convoluted, but that's how we get that going. And then, like I said, we click the add to cart button right here. That button is clicked. So a floating window should pop up here, right? And we're going to go to the cart. So go here. We're going to do the class, which is C button. But you're like, wait, add to cart is also C button. How are we going to select this? We're going to select this differently. We're going to select it by the link text. So the link text is go to cart. So how we're going to do that is go to cart, wait for this element to load by using WebDriver wait. The driver waits 120 seconds until this element or this expected condition right here. The expected condition is that the element will be clickable, and then the element is clickable. We search by link text, go to cart. You can clearly see right here, link text, go to cart. This is this little section right here. It's not labeled, but you can clearly see it on the screen. Go to cart. And then we're just going to click that. Then you're presented with a few options. Typically it does pick up if it detects a location. I didn't put it to detect a location. And I'm also using a VPN, so this Hawthorne location, I don't even know where this Hawthorne location is, but yeah. So we're gonna do shipping. We're going to ship it to us. In order for it to click the shipping button, because by default, like I said, it does pick up, you're going to have to find the input for this, or the input element for the button. we're simply going to select it by the ID. So the ID is fulfillment, shipping, and then a bunch of random numbers and letters. I think that's to identify like the zip code here, exactly where you're trying to click. So you just go here, just go back over here. Shipping, WebDriver, wait again. We're going to wait until the whole page loads, because when we click the go to cart button, it loads a different page. So we're going to wait for the button to appear. We're going to wait until the element is clickable, and then by the CSS selector, this is a different one that we're going to use. Before we use the link text, now we're using CSS selector. We're going to do the input, which is a type, it's input, and then we're going to use the ID. We're going to select by ID, and then we're going to use what the ID type is, fulfillment dash shipping. So this is what I did here. This little part right here with the star and the equal, that's to do a partial matching, because like I said, these random letters and numbers is to identify the zip code, essentially, or wherever you're selecting it from. So we're just gonna go here, shipping. We're gonna click the little button there, and then we're going to sleep. After that, we're gonna click the checkout button. So we're gonna find that element by the class type. The class type is right here, checkout, good to go. We're gonna hit the checkout button, just like that. And button dash primary, I believe that's the only one that's button dash primary. PayPal is a different one, but we're gonna do guest checkout. So we're gonna click this checkout button here. Let's go ahead and click that. And we're gonna find the checkout button by the class name, button dash primary, gonna click that button. And then this next screen is to either continue as guest or to log into your Best Buy account. We're gonna go as guest. It's a lot simpler when doing automation to do guest mode and just have the bot type in everything for you. So we're gonna do it, select the element by the class. The class right here is guest. As you can see, we could do like partial, so we don't have to do the whole thing. So just do anything within the class that's defined. So we're gonna do guest here by class name, guest. As long as this section that we're trying to select here is within the class name, we're good to go. And we just click that like so. So I'm clicking these elements by just hitting this at the top, if you haven't seen that before, but clicking and do the input. It's an input field, clearly it's a text box, and the ID is first name that they use to do the first name, and this next one is last name. And I think this address field is, the ID is street. So we're just gonna do it by the ID, and we're gonna go that way. So first name, that's the field, the first name field. We're gonna use the WebDriver.wait, because remember, the page is still loading before we select any of these elements down here. So the first name is the first thing that we're gonna click. So we're just gonna wait 120 seconds. It should load within 2 minutes. If it's not loading within 2 minutes, then problem with your internet connection or something like that, or the page is literally blocking you. It'll probably detected you as a bot. Like I said, it only do that if you're like clicking everything quick. So we got to use these timed out sleep. But anyway, until the element is clickable by the name is first name. They made it pretty simple to select it, so by first name. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to type each character at random intervals to make it more human-like, as I put in the notes here. So for I in Bucko, so this is the string. Within the string is gonna select a character. So I is whatever the character is at the time. So I is B, I is U, I is C, and so on. So first name dot send keys is gonna send whatever element is at I. So whatever element is here, and then we're gonna sleep for a little bit, make it more human-like, and we're just gonna wait. So random dot uniform, and then we're gonna wait between 0 seconds and half a second, and then we're going to go here and we're gonna find last name. We're gonna do the same thing, send the keys, and then the street we're going to do the same thing, except for the street is slightly different. For the street section, if you go to the address, a little autocomplete box pops up, and that could be a bit of an issue depending. on how you look at it, but we can actually click on this little section right here for autocomplete, so we don't even have to put in the whole address. Once you get to a certain point where you get most of the address that you want to select, you can just go here and do the autocomplete. So for the autocomplete section, we just go here, div class equal autocomplete. Here I selected it by doing the tb input autocomplete dash input, which shows itself up right here under the input. So tb dash input autocomplete, we just do it by the class name for the input device, and then you can just select it that way. Then we're going to do send keys. We're going to use the keys module in Selenium and just do arrow down. This just mimics an arrow down movement. Enter, and then do the same thing for the enter. And in between that, we're just gonna wait between 0 and 3 seconds for the time.sleep to continue, and finish that off by doing time.sleep 3 seconds. So after that, we're just gonna fill out all of this. All this information will be filled out, and you just go to the apply. The apply button is another C button type. I believe we're just gonna select it by using this like everything within the class type. So that will include, see here, yeah, button C dash button dash secondary, and then we're just gonna select all of this. To combine all of these different sections within the class definition, we just use a dot, and then Selenium figures out exactly which button we're talking about by using the dot. We'll click apply, then we'll wait another 3 seconds, and then we'll scroll down to the email address section, which is pretty straightforward. We just go here, we select it by the ID. The ID is user dot email address right there, and phone as well is basically the same thing, user dot phone. So we go down there, select by the email address, we'll find it by the ID. We'll input the email address here, the Best Buy bot at protonmail.com. That's just a dummy email that I created in Proton. And then there's the phone. We'll select the element by ID, user.phone, and then we'll just go down here. And then after that, we'll hit the pay info, or the payment info button, which is down here. And that's defined by this little class right here. We're gonna select it by the div. So this little div section right here, button dash continue, that's what we're going to select. And then we're just gonna go ahead and click that, and then we'll go to sleep again while the page loads. So after all of that is filled out, we just go to the credit card information. That's not too difficult. It's basically the same thing that we're going to do. So we're just gonna go here, select the text box for that. I believe I did it by ID. So the ID name for this is just going to be number, and then we just send the credit card number in. I just put in a random number in there. I think I use one of those like dummy sites to like generate dummy numbers, and I just put that in there for credit card. I think like, yeah, the first section is like for a Visa, and then everything else is just random numbers, and then everything else is randomized. So yeah, we just selected it by the ID number. Gonna sleep again, and then here's an interesting section. This is where we're going to utilize the no such element exception. So the way it is, Best Buy uses 2 different IDs, I guess, depending either on the browser or how they define like the drop down elements. So we're gonna select the month. As you can see, month and year is like drop down menus. In order to select drop down menus in Selenium, we need to use the select keyword. So select month, we're gonna equal, well, first we're gonna try this. So select month equals select driver dot find the element by ID. I believe the ID for this one is just, let's go here. Yeah, the ID for this one is exp month. and you could also select name. It's the same name, but exp month. So we're gonna try that. And if that element by that ID doesn't exist, it's gonna throw the exception. Once we get that exception, we're gonna catch it, and we're just gonna do select month by name. And I think the name that they typically use is expiration dash month. One of these two should work, depending on whichever one. If it doesn't work, then that means that they changed the naming scheme of it again, but this should work. And then select month, select by visible text. So you do select by visible text whenever you're doing the drop down menu, but it has to match exactly with what text is here within the drop down menu. So you'll just see whichever one you want to select and just match it accordingly. And then we're going to do the exact same thing for year. So the element by name is expiration dash year, or you could do an element by name exp year. It's either by name or by ID, but I think they switch either the names or the IDs depending on, I guess, like I said, with browser, what time of year it is, and different elements. If they just update the page and how they name everything, then that changes again. So we're gonna do try, select year, select the driver.find element by ID, expiration dash year. And if it doesn't exist, we're gonna go down here, select the year equals, well, select year equals select driver.find name by ID, exp year, and then we're just gonna select by visible text. Before I had it for 2022 when I originally created it, but here, well, I just selected 2028 for the year, so we're just gonna do this, and then you're gonna need the security code, so the 3 digits at the back. Here's the same thing. We could do by ID or by name, CVV, but they also have another name which I put in here. So card CVV equals driver.find element by name. Yeah, sometimes they use credit dash card dash CVV or CVV, which is what I'm using now. And then we just do the same thing, driver.find element by ID, and then that should get us going. And then we just put in a random CVV, so I put 818, and then we're just gonna click the finish pay button at the bottom. So let me just 818 finish pay button at the bottom. How we're gonna select that is just go down here. Let's get I believe I did it by class. Yeah, by class name. I believe that's the only button dash primary on this page. So button dash primary for the class. Click that, and then finish.pay. You click it. It sleeps for 60 seconds for that confirmation page to come up. I mean, since we're using a dummy card, the confirmation page won't come up. It'll error out saying, oh, you need proper information for your credit card, and then it just quits the driver after 60 seconds. That's just to make sure that driver isn't like constantly running in the background if you automated this or anything. Just something to note is that I am using a VPN to connect to the Best Buy page. If your IP address is caught like trying to connect to the page multiple times, then I believe they flag you as a like if you're doing testing or something like that, they flag you as being a bot. Since you're doing like repeated functions and doing everything repeatedly. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But this is basically how I did it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed.